Hey everyone, I wanted to make a video to show you how I evaluate trig expressions without using the unit circle but with just using my hand. So I wanted to make a few reminders. The unit circle is based on the concept that the ordered pairs on the unit circle are cosine of that angle, comma sine of that angle. So if you would get your unit circle out and look at it, or Google one and pull one up, when you're looking at it, this is the cosine of that angle, comma the sine. The tangent is going to be the sine over the cosine. Now, you know that this is the x and this is the y. So if you look at this, tangent is going to be the y over the x coordinate. So I wanted to make a point of that just before I get into evaluating. Now this diagram tells you when the trig functions are positive. So in quadrant 1, all of your trig functions, sine, cosine, tangent, and the reciprocals are positive. Here the sine is positive. Here the tangent is positive, and here's the cosine is positive. Now again, when the sine's positive, so is the cosecant. When tangent's positive, so is the cotangent. And when cosine's positive, so is the secant. Everything else is negative. So if I look in this quadrant, I know the sine and its reciprocal and the cosine and its reciprocal are both negative. Okay, so you got to know that. All right, so let's get started. So cosine of 30. Now, I've drawn everything I need to know on my hand. I don't do this when I'm not teaching this. So you might want to do this the first few times. Make sure you use a washable marker and just take that off when you're ready. So this is your 0 degree, 30, 45, 60, and your 90. So I'm going to be focused on these three fingers because these are your reference angles. I'm going to show you how I do the 0 and 90 at the end of this video. You're going to have a 2 on your palm. Alright, so cosine of 30. Again, this is 0. This is 30, so I'm going to pull this 30 down. Now when I pull my finger down that represents 30, that's going to be my comma. And now I have an ordered pair, so I have 3 and a 1. Okay, so now it's asking me for the cosine. Cosine is your x-coordinate. So this is the number you look at. So anything up here, which is part of your ordered pairs, you're going to put a square root on it. So I have the square root of 3 over 2. Both of these fingers always go over 2. So when I pull this one down, cosine is going to be x. So square root 3 over, and again, 2. Okay, now when I get my numbers, I'm going to determine if it's positive or negative. 30 is a reference angle in quadrant 1. And in quadrant 1, they are all positive. So I know that the cosine is positive. So I'm done. Look at your unit circle to compare the answers that you would get there. They should be the same. Alright, sine of 30. So again, I pull the same finger down because that's always my 30. Sine is your y coordinate. So this is your x, comma, y. So 1 is on the top. Always square roots on those. So square root 1 over the 2 on your palm. Now let's determine if it's positive or negative. 30 is in quadrant 1. All of them are positive in quadrant 1. So this is a positive value. Now the only difference there is the square root of 1 is just going to be 1. So you want to reduce that or simplify it to be just 1 over 2, which is a half. Okay? Now tangent of 30. There's a couple of ways you can do this. Tangent of 30, again, you still bring this finger down. Tangent is going to be the sine over the cosine. Alright, so if I pull this down, sine is your y, square root 1 over 2, and then you're going to put that over cosine, which is the square root 3 over 2. Okay, now determine if it's overall positive or negative. Tangent is going to be positive in this quadrant. So okay, I'm just going to keep it positive. Now I have to simplify this because it's a fraction over a fraction. So I would do, remember this simplifies to 1/2. So 1/2 times 2 over the square root 3. because you flip that bottom one. Now the 2's would cancel out, and I would be left with 1 over square root 3. And we know we can't leave radicals on the bottom, so we rationalize by multiplying by 1. But the 1's going to be the square root 3 over 3. It's equivalent to 1, but it rationalizes for us. So I have the square root of 9 on the bottom. 1 times square root 3 would be square root 3 on top. Now, simplify. Square root of 9 is 3. And the square root of 3 is just going to stay square root 3. So the tangent of 30 is the square root of 3 over 3. Okay, that's one way to do it. The other way is to know that tangent is your y over your x. Okay, so I'm going to erase these right here and show you the second way. So if I had the tangent of 30, y over x, so pull this down, y is the square root of 1 over x is the square root of 3. Get positive or negative. 30 is in quadrant 1. Tangent's positive in quadrant 1, so I leave it positive. Square root of 1 reduces to 1, but I have a square root 3 on the bottom, which means I have to rationalize. Multiply by the square root of 3 over square root 3. Square root 3 over square root 9. And then square root 3 over 3. So either way you do it, you're going to get square root 3 over 3. It's a little bit quicker if you just look at the your fingers. Alright, so let's do a couple more. Okay, so let's do a 5/10. So cosine of 510 degrees. So 510 degrees, you're going to have to find the reference angle first. So 510, let's subtract 360. When I subtract 360, I'm going to get 150. Okay, 150 is going to be in quadrant 2, right here, and you're going to have a reference angle of 30. Okay, so I still have the same reference angle as I did in my first examples, except now we're in quadrant 2. The process with your hand doesn't change. Okay, so this has a reference angle of 30, so it's going to be equivalent to the cosine of 150. Okay, reference angle of 30. That's what you need to remember. You don't really even need to have this. It's equivalent, yes, because they're coterminal angles, but you just need to remember your reference angle is 30. Okay, this is the symbol for angle. Okay, so take your hand, pull your 30 down, and then find cosine. Cosine is your x. So you've got a 3, but remember we put square root over that. So square root 3 over 2. Okay, square root 3 over 2. We're not finished because we have to determine if it's positive or negative. So look at your quadrants here. Sine and its reciprocal is the only thing that's positive in this quadrant. So cosine is going to be negative. So I'm going to put a negative on that square root 3. You can put it there, or you can put it in the middle, or you can put it on the bottom. Normally it's either on the top or the middle. Okay? And you're done. Alright, so let's do sine of 510. So we just determined the reference angle of 510 was 30. Go to your fingers, pull the 30 down. This is 0, 30, 45, 60. Pull your 30 down. Sine is the square root 1 over 2. Leave it there for just a moment. Determine if it's positive or negative. One the 510 was coterminal to 150, which was in this quadrant. We determined that when we found cosine. So it's in this quadrant. Sine is positive in that quadrant. So I'm going to leave that as positive. 1/2 would be your answer there. Okay? And we're going to do tangent of 510 just for practice. Same conversation. Reference angle of 30. It's in quadrant 2. So pull your 30 down. Tangent, and I showed you in the last example, there's 2 ways to do this, but tangent is essentially the y over the x coordinate. So square root 1 over square root 1 over square root 3, y over x. We've got square root 1 over square root 3. Determine if it's positive or negative. That 510 was coterminal to 150, which is in this quadrant. Sine is the only one positive in that quadrant, so tangent is going to be negative. Okay, so I know my answer is going to be negative. Simplify this. You got negative 1 over square root 3. You can't have a radical on the bottom. Rationalize that. Again, this process is going to be a lot quicker once you do a lot of these. I'm showing you all the work just in case if you need a quick review. Square root of 9 is going to be 3, negative square root 3. Okay, so tangent of that would, there you go. All right. Okay, let's do another one. Okay, we're going to do negative 480. Okay, I'm going to switch it up and do sine first. So sine of negative 480, we need to find the coterminal angles to that until I get to positive and then determine a reference angle. So if I take negative 480 and I add 360 to that, I get negative 120. So negative 120, a lot of you would just go from here and go negative 120, just go in this direction. And then you could determine that reference angle is going to be 60. If you wanted to make this positive and you add 360 to negative 120, you're going to get 240. And 240 is going to start here, but you end up in the same place with the same reference angle. So it doesn't matter which way you do it, you're going to end up on the same place because they're coterminal. I'm adding 360 every time. Okay, so I know that my reference angle is 60. Reference angle equals 60. So take your hand, you're going to pull down the 60 finger. That's your comma. Sine is the y coordinate. So here's your x, here's your y, square root 3, always over the 2. Okay, then determine if it's positive or negative. This was in quadrant 3. So right here in quadrant 3, your tangent and cotangent are positive, not your sine. So this has to be negative. So negative square root 3 over 2 is your answer. You're done because you do not have a radical in the bottom. Okay? Again, check these on your unit circle. You know, you've learned it one way. Make sure that, you know, this is just something that's going to help you, and confirming your answer will help you trust it. Okay? All right. Now, let's change it up a bit. Let's find the cotangent of negative 480. So again, I'm down here and my reference angle is still 60. So if I find the cotangent, we know tangent is y over x, so cotangent is x over y. Okay, so 60 is the one you pull down. Okay, and then we do x over y because it's cotangent. X square root 1 over square root 3. Okay? Cotangent is x over y. Now remember in the first example I showed you how you find cosine, and that would be square root 1 over 2 and the square root 3 over 2. But this is a little bit quicker. Alright, now determine if it's positive or negative. Again, I'm in quadrant 3. So I'm here. Tangent is positive in that quadrant. So this is going to stay positive. This is going to be 1 over square root 3 stays positive, but I have to rationalize the denominator. So multiply by 1, square root 3 over square root 3. Square root 3 over 9, or excuse me, square root 3 over square root 9. Square root 9 is 3. And there you go. That's your answer. Okay? And we'll do one more with the negative 480. Let's do cosecant. Okay? Cosecant of negative 480. Cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. So sine, again, we have a reference angle of 60. It's in this quadrant, right? The sine of negative 480 would be the square root 3 over 2. The cosecant would be 2 over square root 3 because it's the reciprocal. So it's the bottom number, the 2, which usually goes on the bottom with sine, cosine, tangent, or sine and cosine, excuse me. And then the square root 3 would be your bottom one in this point. So we've got that. Now we determine if it's positive or negative. We're in quadrant 3. Tangent and cotangent are the only ones that are positive in quadrant 3. So cosecant is going to be negative. Okay, now we have to rationalize. Multiply by the square root 3 over square root 3. We get negative 2 square root 3 over square root 9, which reduces to 3. I skipped a step right there that I haven't before. But again, this is square root 9. Square root 9 is 3. So there's your answer. Okay. All right. Okay, so now we're going to do a couple of the ones that I haven't done so far. So let's do the tangent. No, I don't want to start with that. Let's do the cosine of 180. So the thing with the cosine of 180, it's not on your hand because the cosine of 180, the measurement would be right here. Okay. I don't want to do that on my hand. It's a little bit easier, I think, just to graph it. So if I graph 180, remember your unit circle, remember graphing ordered pairs. This ordered pair is going to be negative 1, comma 0. Okay? Negative 1, comma 0. So, on a unit circle, I use the radius of 1. Cosine is going to be x over r. X over r. So your x is negative 1 and your r is 1 because in the unit circle all the radii is 1. So there you go. You reduce it, you get negative 1. Okay. If we do, let's do sine of 270. Alright, sine of 270. 270 is going to be on that axis right there. Get your ordered pair, which would be 0, negative 1. Sine is the y coordinate over the r. The r is 1 on the unit circle. So you do negative 1 over 1, which goes to negative 1. And you're done. Okay? And let's do a tangent. Tangent of 90. Alright, tangent of 90. 90 would be here. Your ordered pair would be 0, comma 1. tangent is your y coordinate over your x coordinate. So 1 over 0. Y coordinate over your x coordinate. 1 over 0 is undefined. Put it all on there. Now remember, when you have 0 over a number, that's going to be 0. But if you have 0 on the bottom, that's undefined. Okay, now notice I didn't do any radian measures, but what you would do on radian measures, a lot of people can work in radians, some people need to convert it. So convert that radian measure to degree, get your reference angle, use your hand, use your chart to get positive or negative, and you got it. I hope that helps.